Old Alabama Gardener here, and this video is about canning tomato juice. We'll start this video with me picking the tomatoes, and you can watch some of my other videos to see how I plant and grow tomatoes. So here's the tomatoes that I'm going to be processing today. First thing I always do, of course, is put them in the sink and wash them pretty good. Now normally I would scald these tomatoes in hot water so I could peel them, but I'm going to process them differently this time, as you'll see in just a few minutes. Now the way I'm doing this, you really don't even need to cut out the core. All we're going to do is just slice around it, and of course you notice that the skin is still on this tomato. So I'll just continue with this slicing until I get that pan full, and then we'll be ready to go to the next step. Now this is called a masticating juicer as compared to the centrifugal juicer. What it's going to do is it will separate the peeling and the seed from the pulp of the tomato and the tomato juice. Now here you can see the seed and skin coming out the shoot on the left-hand side, and the juice and the meat or the pulp of the tomato coming out the round shoot on the right-hand side. Now you might notice, as I dip my finger in it, that the juice is pretty good. It's kind of thick. Now the Ball Blue Book, which is the Bible on canning, recommends that you bring your tomato juice up to 190 degrees and hold it there for 5 minutes. So that's what I'm going to do. Alright, as soon as we've done that, then we are ready to put it in the jars. It's okay if you can it without adding any salt, but later on you'll never be able to get the tomato juice to taste right if you don't put a little bit of salt in it now. So I'm only going to add 1/4 teaspoon, even though the canning books recommends 1/2 teaspoon. But the salt is not required for safe and effective canning. Now here's an important point. If you are canning low acid tomatoes, which many tomatoes today are, then you need to add some citric acid or lemon juice or vinegar to it to bring the acidity level up. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go ahead and add some citric acid. So I'm adding 1/4 teaspoon of citric acid per pint of juice. Now let's get started filling these jars with tomato juice. It's probably a little bit hard for you to see, but I am leaving about 3/4 inch of head space, they call it, which is really an open area between the top of the juice and the lid. Now be sure to wipe the rim of the jar very well before you put the lid on. Any particles of tomato or anything there will probably keep it from sealing the way it should. So now we're ready. We add a hot lid, and we get ready to put the ring on to tighten it down. Now here's a little secret about tightening that ring down. Don't over tighten it, because if you do, the new lids, what they call the BPA free lids, will in fact buckle under the hot water bath process. How do you know how tight to tighten the ring? Now if you notice carefully, as soon as I feel resistance, as I'm screwing that ring down, as soon as I feel resistance, I stop, and I'll show you what we do next. Now, Once I feel resistance, then I turn that ring about 1/4 of an inch more. Now, not 1/4 of a turn, that's be way too much. Only about 1/4 of an inch after I feel resistance. Now, some people use the term finger tight, but finger tight to me might be different than to a finger tight to a woman, for example. So I like the term when I feel resistance, that's when I stop and then turn it 1/4 of an inch more. Now I'm going to use a fine line Sharpie marker and show you how much I do turn it. So I have turned that ring to where I felt resistance, what some people might call finger tight, and I'm placing a mark on it, and then I will turn it just a little bit more and we'll see what that looks like. So when you see me turn it, then you begin to see how much I'm talking about. And that's only about 1/4 of an inch after finger tight or when I begin to feel resistance. Alright, so now we got to do what's called hot water bath. And so we're going to set those jars in that pot and fill it with water to about 2 inches above the top of the jars and begin to boil it. Once it comes to a full rolling boil, we're going to boil it for 35 minutes for pints. Now this is different than tomatoes. For tomatoes it would be 40 minutes, but we're doing juice, so it's only going to be 35 minutes. Our 35-minute timing is up and we're ready to remove these jars, hot I might add, out and let them cool off. So I'm going to put it on a board over there, a piece of paper, and just set them down outside and let them cool before I take them in the house. This is just some of the jars that I've canned. I started canning on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday for a total of 71 jars of tomato juice out of this just one picking of my tomatoes.